All right, episode 226. That's 226. Today we're talking about the largest MLS in the country now allows concessions. This is a big deal. You're going to want to check that out. Keller Williams backs down. What? They're always in the fight. And Zillow changes. You're going to want to listen to this because we're going to get started right freaking now.
Missed you guys.
All right. Welcome to the only real estate podcast worth listening to. It's been a while since we've done this, so you probably forgot who I am. I'm Nick Good.
The boys are back.
That's Brian Force.
I am Matt. I'm here also.
I am Matt. I'm Matt. He's the Gronk of the show, I guess.
Yes.
I'm Matt. Matt Kelderman over there. And we've taken a few weeks off. Just look, you know, we needed a little recalibration.
We do this every summer, by the way.
People demand too much from us.
Yeah.
I found our cadence at 80 shows. We all are like, 80 is a lot.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to do 80 more? This is our third 80th breakdown about.
Third revolution.
Yes.
I-
Yes.
I will say I had ChatGPT kind of look and analyze our show, and the thing it spit out, it was great. That was this morning. I was like, all right.
Yeah.
And I was like, give me the top 10 podcasts we're competing in, and give me the topics that we should use to start siphoning some of their listeners. And their suggestion was the topic we're not going with, by the way, which was utilizing AI and technology to enhance your real estate, business. And I'm like, we've already done that show.
We
Yeah,
have
a
done that
couple
show, but
times.
Brian and I stumbled into a little bit of like clarity around AI and why it's so enjoyable as we were talking about this, like literally as we were going live. Dude, Googling something is such a dead end road. And as we were sitting here talking about this, Brian was like, it's just so satisfying to get a result from ChatGPT that you can then ask it to do more stuff as opposed to trying to like find whatever relevant information on the 5th page of Google you can.
So
Like we do it just for this show. Like when we're not super prepared, we'll literally Google, like what's going on, what's relevant, what can we talk about today? And it's probably the most frustrating part of this process
easily.
because we can never agree on anything. A lot of times it's a light week in real estate news. Asking ChatGPT is actually way more effective than Googling.
It is,
in
and
that regard.
you just brought up, Matt, about the kind of Google search experience. That's starting to change. So Google Gemini, by the way, a podcast that I would highly recommend listening to that's not real estate related is the All In podcast. And it's by 4 technology people. One guy started or was early adopter, kind of founder of PayPal. Someone was in the early stages who was friends with Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook. And all they do is talk about really a lot of AI, a lot of technology, a lot of business podcasts. They bring up a little bit of politics as well. But they were talking about how Google's changing the search experience, utilizing AI, and it's going to change completely how people search. And could that change the way, pay-per-click goes? Will that change the way, like if you're looking to make a recipe, AI will pull up probably the most popular one. And so now they're talking about, should you actually get paid? Should that become a license royalty as the content creator? Because before it was kind of a trade-off, and now they're utilizing that, which is going to take away search from other websites. So there's a lot of changes going on, not just here in real estate, but just in the technology business space. Like a lot of people rely on pay-per-click. A lot of people rely on search engine optimization, which is going to change drastically.
Pay-per-click. I hadn't even thought about that. That's a very interesting one, chiefly because, right now you have, I do run all of our pay-per-click for a lot of our businesses. And the process is very easy, but it's templated. And so you have like the sponsored at the top and you control all that. Like I see a future in which, Chat GPT or AI in general is just handcrafting dynamic advertising that is specific to your prompt that you don't even know it as advertising, but it is pay-per-click and it's just embedded in your searches and the way that it answers questions and interacts with you. Like I see a future where when you Google something, it gives you such an immersive experience that you don't even know it's advertising.
Probably so.
I think you're spot on, because ChatGPT could do that to me now.
Sure.
I get so caught up. I have never been more excited to tell somebody about something as I did to tell them what I thought I just found was really profound on ChatGPT. Like the other day, I asked it to make this whole post, not posting schedule, but like what should I actually post specifically for TikTok based on me, based on my market. And it gave me all this stuff. I've been running around showing that to people like I just discovered something. I'm like, this is so fantastic. And I think so many agents don't realize that how useful it can still be.
Well, and
but we're not going to talk about it.
But we're not. But actually, I would love to actually break this down.
Change
further.
the title.
Right?
Yeah, because I mean, it's getting to the point where, and then we'll get to who sponsors the show, and we'll get to the rest of this. But this is kind of a brief kind of look into our minds of how we think and how this thing goes. But not everyone understands how to interpret data at the highest level, right? And that actually scares. I know it scares a lot of people. Like, oh, just look at the data. I'm like, I don't know how to interpret that shit. But you can go, what we were talking about, even for your TikTok algorithms and everything else, you can go download that, put that into ChatGPT or to Gemini, one of the AI functions, and it will spit out, all right, your demographic looks like this. The best posting time should be around this time. So that's when you need to be focused the most. And right now it's going to get it in a more very easily digestible format so that you can understand it. Yep. So that becomes more where your AI or technology enhanced, not replaced, but enhanced. Right. And it helps us with investor updates and breaking down that. I know, heck, I even had it create a newsletter head for me today. Like I'm back into doing some small lead generation, and I'm like,
he's destroying everybody.
No, that's small for him.
Yeah,
he was on the phone for 26 minutes today. Just like took another appointment after the buyer referral or the buyer one that he picked up last time we were.
So I was doing a handwritten note, and I noticed that I didn't have an updated letterhead yet. So I just went into ChatGPT because I didn't want to go make it. And I was like, all right, here's my logo, make it, and just spit it out, and then printed it.
You just did that.
Yeah, and cool. So again, it's enhanced, not replaced. But we can talk more about that later at a different show. But today, episode 226. It is brought to you by Mortgage Mike.
Yes, it is.
Mortgage Mike, he doesn't believe in AI yet because he's got that big old Mortgage Mike stamp of approval that he just likes stamping it all around people. He's doing my home loan. He's doing my personal home loan under contract to buy a house in McKinney. So he's using, doing a great job on that. And so I would go to mmgloans.com and get that Mortgage Mike stamp of approval. In fact, I think Kelderman's got something to say.
Dude, I have a lender right now who is not Mortgage Mike, who I'm dealing with, who legitimately was told to call the listing agent yesterday on an offer we put in against another offer, and they legitimately did not do it. Just said, we'll call them tomorrow. I got an email at 11:30 last night from the agent saying, and it is specific. You can go to my TikTok. I made a video. I screenshotted it. The agent says straight up, the fact that your lender didn't call made my buyers nervous. They went with the other offer. This lender not calling put my buyers in a position not even to be considered. And I will tell you, I did not recommend this lender to them. When a buyer comes in with their own lender, I respect that relationship. I don't try and stomp on it or anything like that because that's a decision they made about somebody they trust before they met me. So I want to stay there. But this lender absolutely dropped the ball yesterday for these clients. Whether they would have got the house or not is irrelevant. They didn't do their job. And I will tell you, Mortgage Mike will call people. I have had him do it. He will make that phone call every single time when you're representing a buyer to listing agent.
Absolutely. And you know who else I'm using? Theron Smith, Armadillo Home Warranty. Got me that top of the line warranty. He's really got the extra shell protection on this house that I'm buying. So if you're looking to get that, the best home warranty that we believe out there in the industry, he's got the one-page contract. So you don't even need to use AI to read it for you. You can read one page.
You can read,
right? You can do that yourself. Just go to armadillo.one/tour, TORE, and then residential property management. No one likes to talk about it, just like insurance. It's not sexy, right? But you need it. You need to leverage your time out. You need someone looking out for your best interest, and that's what Dana Wynn does at Homeward DFW. I even heard a rumor that they're going to write a best-selling ebook.
That's what I heard. Heard it's in the works.
Is it Dana going to do it?
Oh yeah, she's got all the
personal service, customer service.
Yeah,
we just had two agents. Agents need to listen up. Just two agents that we signed their referrals. They're now going to be housed at Homeward for the next year, and you will know exactly when their lease is up. You can come back and help them sell when they need to. Investor clients, and two more sitting in my inbox that I have already conversed with that we're trying to convert that are all agent referrals. So if you're a real estate agent and you've got these you don't want to take care of, I am actually about to push one of my own into Homeward. A lady, I've been renting her place for her for years. And then 2 years ago, she decided that she was just going to rent it on her own. She texted me last night. We talked today. It's going to be a Homeward opportunity, and it's going to be fantastic. So even I send my business to Homeward.
Yep.
Boom.
Love it. Last but not least,
Love it.
Last but not least, we got Jesse.
There he is.
Old Jesse back there. He forgot how to do this because we took off 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks. I don't know the last time we did the show.
You want to know the sickest thing about Jesse? He's going to sit behind the camera and produce this for you. Jesse also just went and showed clients houses. And why that's relevant to you real estate agents who want to produce content, Jesse understands what the conversation's supposed to be. When you get in here to Tour Studios and you start maybe rambling a little bit or wanting to do something stupid that makes no sense, Jesse's going to tell you, I sell real estate also. That is a terrible idea, and you should not talk about that, right? So if you're a real estate agent looking to produce content, Jesse's also one of you.
Tourstudios.com.
Tour Studios is about to get an upgrade this week as well. If you think our stuff looks good now, just wait till next week. We're getting all new stuff in here.
You're going to be able to see the pores in my face at a level that's going to make you uncomfortable.
Great. Awesome. We love it. We can't wait. We're going to get more listeners and viewers on this one. So, all right, let's get into this, right? Allows the largest MLS, which is actually the California Regional Multiple Listing Service, CRMLS, the nation's largest MLS, has just introduced changes allowing sellers to list any concessions that they are willing to offer, including broker commissions now, right? So this update, is affecting approximately about 110,000 users, and it lets sellers include monetary contributions for various transaction costs directly related into the listing, which were previously only recorded at closing, right? So now they can offer that up front. I think that was actually, I didn't even read this until we talked about this today, but I'm going through looking at listings, and I signed a first-time home buyer this morning who is going to need some concessions, and that is something that I thought about. I was like, how great would that be to know which sellers automatically are willing to offer something up front? Because look, you're a first-time home buyer, or she's like, man, 7.5% interest rate. That's a little steep right now. And rates aren't looking like they're going to drop this year, at least.
No. It is imperative that the buyer understands all of the financial responsibilities they have in a real estate transaction. Yeah. It is just the fact that there's an argument against this is absurd. Now, if you want to take it off the MLS, like it has been proposed with the buyer agent commission, that's fine. I love that California is allowing this, but that's an irrelevant piece of information. You were talking about your buyer this morning. Their offer price, and we can decide whether or not we're going to say it like at the time of offer or if it's negotiable, all of those things. That all of that conversation is open, but to not have people know what it is until after things have been agreed upon is foolishness. Yeah. And to not allow a seller, which is what California has done, to not allow a seller to market their advantage of being in a financial position to offer money as an incentive to the buyer to pay their buyer's agent, I think that flips the whole thing on its head. I actually think it puts sellers at a disadvantage they don't deserve to be at if they weren't one of the people who just hate on real estate agents.
It's actually like the whole lawsuit in the first place was supposed to be because sellers were at a disadvantage by, having to compensate buyers agents or whatever. This still would put them at a disadvantage if they're not able to advertise what it is they're willing to do to help attract a buyer. This is a really, really awesome development in this whole opera, as a soap opera, as it's been, this whole thing that's unfolded. I am interested, and this is maybe just, I don't follow this stuff as closely as I should. Part of this, and I'm just reading what ChatGPT spit out, or part of the article that you sent, that this does not violate any part of the NAR settlement So I'm a little confused on that part because
I am too.
So
Well,
how does that
because
work?
It's not offering a true compensation.
But
It's
they
saying-
did say, but this most recent thing that everybody agreed to that was going into effect in August, right?
Mhm.
And I may be misquoting it, and Jesse maybe in the background can pull up figure out some sort of bullet pointed way to fill out what they said. I thought that this was one of the things they were trying to head off. They were afraid the DOJ was going to jump back into the lake on this and start kicking people's ass about. Was that the DOJ was really, really committed to decoupling the commission part of the process from the sales part of the process. And this seems to be in direct, like, I don't know.
It's literally just
conflict
putting it
of
in a different part of the MLS.
I think it needs to be there. Yes, absolutely.
It should be. That makes
It-
perfect
it
sense.
does.
Think of it this way. So if we think of this in an easier way, first off, the DOJ is going to do what they do, and
Sure.
I don't think they necessarily win on that.
I don't feel like the largest MLS in the world is going to be such jackasses, though, that they're going to do something that they had to have had attorneys advise them the DOJ is not looking at this, because why would the largest MLS with the most scrutiny on them go make a call like this without double checking first? Like, that makes
I
no
agree.
logical
That's
sense.
the thing I'm trying to figure out, is that they're just going rogue and just saying, like, we're big enough that if we set the trend, other people will follow, or if this truly isn't.
There's only 5% of the license
My
agents,
understanding that it was a blanket policy now that you cannot advertise BAC on the MLS.
and they're not.
It's not.
So
They're
this is
advertising concessions.
so.
But I thought the language was.
But if the concessions are saying this is for buyer compensation,
I think the concessions are there, and you
Nope.
can use them for whatever you
no,
want.
that's exact. All right. The update provides
I think
users
that's
with the
as-
option of including 4 new fields.
Okay.
The first field is concessions and price, right?
Okay.
So this is a text box for numerical input only.
Oh, there we go.
This amount must include any potential concessions and a single total amount, right? So one total amount. It's like, hey, you get this amount, then you
We've been
as the
doing this
buyer-
generically.
All right, but now read point number 3.
Hang on.
Yeah, right. And then we go to point number 2, which is concessions and price type. That is a selection to classify the number above as either a dollar or percentage amount,
Okay.
right? And then you go to number 3.
Some agent's going to list, like, they want to offer $1,500. The agent's going to put 1,500% in
Yeah.
there, like some
Right.
dipshit.
Seller considering concessions. A selection of either yes or no. If yes, then the listing will include the auto-populated phrase, a seller may consider a buyer concession
I
if
love
made an
that.
offer.
I
And
feel like this is a little bit trolling the lawsuit,
it
too.
really is. Okay, so I see how they're getting around it. They're not using the word commission in here anywhere.
No.
You're advertising concessions.
But I will say that even seemed in the mid-August ruling,
Yes.
even the concessions language seemed to be
Yeah.
not allowed.
That's
Because that was the workaround everybody started shouting from the rooftops at the beginning, and it seemed to be part of this new agreement that specifically, even around concessions,
right.
wasn't allowed. So, like,
Sure.
this is still surprising.
I think that maybe there's some insight to that. Maybe it's just saying, screw it, we got to go with what we know right now. And
Yeah.
you're right. I mean, so again, it's important because it enhances transparency, which in all reality, when you ask a seller what they're willing to take, they're like, oh, full price or more, right? Ha ha ha.
more.
Yeah.
Full price or more.
$1 million bucks.
Yeah. But at the same time, we know if you look at the averages, we know right now, at least in the DFW, Dallas-Fort Worth area, the average homeowner is coming off almost 4 to 5% off their asking price, right? So we know that they're willing to come off their price. And so it just makes sense to say, hey, instead of, I don't know if giving a dollar amount makes sense up front, like we're willing to give $10,000 unless there's something wrong with the house, where it's like, hey, we're willing to give a $5,000 credit for carpet because we know this carpet is trash.
This is a personality issue, right? The type of person who's not going to want to put their top number on the MLS just isn't going to do it. Other people who are motivated, distressed, right, to do that, they'll do it, right? Like, I feel like that's because here's where I see the glitch in that. If I'm talking to a seller and I say, look, we can offer a commission, but we have to offer the maximum amount, because it says right there, right? You have to offer the total dollar amount, right?
That's on the first one.
Yes. And so it's a part of it or a percentage. The percentage part that I like, the concessions in a price type, because then you could just offer 3%
This is the trolling part.
of the contract part.
You
And
just
then it
start
gets
putting whatever percentage. I don't want to get in trouble.
But I
Use
love why
magic
Brian giggled
percentage.
about number 3. And if Jesse could throw this up in the chat, just the link, if you have Inman, you can actually look at this. But like the seller concessions part, it's just going to say a seller. So what they're saying is, you have this really beautiful, cute option of gently like landing this plane on a runway of saying a seller may offer concessions, or you check no that says screw you, bitch.
Yeah, right.
We ain't offering anything, right? Like there's just like it's one or the other, and it seems to to work against sellers.
Well, that's
from a marketing perspective.
It 100% does. And so, I mean, here's the thing. It would be hysterical, honestly, in my opinion, if we ended up in a situation after all of this where every MLS just followed suit, and the only real change to the MLS is that there's a box that either has a dollar amount or a percentage, and everybody just puts a relatively common percentage in this other box. And we did this whole thing for like 2 years for no reason.
You do realize that's ask Matt. I've been like, dude, we're not changing our business model right now. We logically thinking you're like, oh, this, and this. But I said, we're not changing a business model because ultimately, look, the commission part has been around since 1940.
I still think the agents having to have,
I know.
This is the part of this conversation that gets conveniently left out when we talk about my stance on this. I think the fact that agents have to sign the buyer rep agreement before they even see these listings is what's going to drive commissions down, because weak agents are going to take a 1.5%, 2%, and they're going to do it for that.
And they're going to screw themselves.
And then over time, and look, if you look up statistics right now, buyer agency commission is more than listing agency commission. That's skewed. And it's because listing agents have been negotiating for buyers agency commission
themselves.
Exactly.
Their own
and you eat the discount as the listing agent, right? That is going to change. You're going to see a lot more agents jumping at 2%, and over time, the number will come down.
But I think since 2020 that I'd like to see a stat on that to see what the average co-op compensation has been since 2020, and it's going to be less than 3%.
My ADHD kicked in the other day, and I've got it written down. But I actually went through all of the active listings in Plano, and I looked at the BAC on every single one of them. And I want to say there was about 163 to 183 of the ones that I looked at that were active. And I will tell you that less than 15% of them were offering anything other than straight 3%. That's including 2.75, 2.5, 2,
so it's
whatever
90%.
It was. It's about 90% because I actually did it. And then I went to all the closed properties over a 3-month span, and that number was actually a little bit lower. Yeah. And the reason I want to say that is because I took 2 hours to do this, actually, to make a TikTok video to talk shit to somebody, and I didn't have the stats to back it up. There was a small correlation, and this is the number that I think we're going to see change, and why commissions I think will be affected a little bit. We are going to see over time people try this model a little bit more, and it's going to work. And when you start talking about higher price points, right, it's really going to work. Because it's going to be harder and harder to justify 3% and $1.5 million all day long. Like it just is.
I mean, that's
already, and agents will jump at 1.5%.
We keep saying that percentage number, but that's already not standard.
It's already not.
Go sell real estate in Manhattan. You're not getting that.
It's not. But I will say most of the country's not Manhattan, and two, while it's not a standard.
I just mean because of the price point.
You're right. But even here locally, we still see it, right? I've said for years I would prefer to work with luxury buyers than luxury sellers all day long.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
One, my luxury buyer is probably going to buy here for reason. My luxury seller may just decide not to sell.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's even more probable.
Yeah.
The higher it gets and the bigger the losses become.
Agreed.
Right.
Plus, your buyer pool gets smaller.
Your buyer pool gets way smaller. So you can DFW over $1.5 million, it drops off a cliff.
I still don't know, Jesse, if we're allowed to really talk about the average just commissions. I still wonder about if we were to show this.
Statistically, I think in a way, I mean,
we're not talking about charging it. This is literally a publicly printed article, is it not?
I think you're right, though. I think that the buyers not able to negotiate their own commission is going to be where there's a big shakeup.
Yes,
and that's going to lead not only to a compression in commissions on the buy side, potentially, it's going to lead to a downsizing in agents. And you've already seen it. You're already seeing it. That's going to be
New York Times did an article about that I couldn't get behind a paywall on, but it was essentially around it.
Outside of that, though, if this all does shake out the way it's starting to maybe look like it shakes out, just the amount of money that changed hands to end up in a relatively similar place is hysterical.
Such an embarrassing amount of money too for the sellers, right? Like
it's not going to change that much. No. And again, we still going back to us charging. Yes, we need to get a buyer's rep. I think that's I was just talking to David about this.
It'll make buyers better. It'll make buyers agents better.
But here's the major difference is when a seller's house is not selling, that it's going to be offered as incentives, and you're going to see more and more of that. And it's going to be, it could be more, it could be less. It's when it shakes out. Jesse just looked at what the average commission in Texas paid out. It's going to land somewhere around that in general. And I saw another analyst that was talking about this, who I don't even think they're in the real estate industry, but they've been researching. They said it's not going to change commissions, that the average payout that much.
Right. Almost every real estate attorney is saying, guys, like, this is not going to flesh out the way that you think it is.
Yeah.
You know,
but everyone gets all up in arms because most buyers agents are weak. There's a reason why there's a Facebook group that really trolls them. And and they trolls them. They get trolled bad as a buyer's agent,
semi-accurately.
Yeah, and it's because they're not treating this like a business. And they're not showing the value of what they're going to offer, what they do. You know, the lady I met with today, I went through a whole list of her she's like, I want the best price. But I said, do you want the best price or the best terms? She's like, what's the difference? And we walked through that. She's like, I'd rather have the best terms than the best price. I said, exactly. So let me show you this, this, and this. Signed on the dot.
And what everybody's going to hear in that is like, oh, Nick talked about price and then whatever. One, you don't like, I was there. It was an hour and a half conversation. First off, there was lots of deep stuff. And when Nick came out, he showed me how he went through the process with her. Guys, they filled out booklets like it was Sunday school. Okay. Like, I want you to understand, but this is why it's so effective. When you just go into some buyer and tell them, yeah, I can help you find that, and sure, it exists, and don't worry, you won't have to pay me. That is not the same as what Nick Good did today.
Yeah.
What Nick Good today was go through a buyer consultation, explain to them the financials, the advantage of the wealth building aspect, where they should be financially, brought value from a lender's perspective. It was an in-depth analysis of that person's needs with them and their daughter sitting there. Like, so make no mistake, like, the way you approach this also is going to be long you would get.
Well, you're
Maybe
100% right.
episode 227.
There you go.
Boom.
I like it.
Callback.
That's
baby.
the reason I think long term this doesn't change things a whole lot, because this is the shakeup that we're going to see. Give it a year.
By the way, that was a Facebook lead. That was not referred to me. That was off of a cold call.
Nice. Give it a year of having to have buyer rep agreements signed up front, and the people that are going to survive on that side are the ones that can do a real buyer consultation.
Well, that
if you're
goes
just not ready to do that, it's going to be difficult.
That goes a little bit into the Zillow change. So we'll talk about that last. So tune in, stay all the way through this. Make sure you're going to give us, look, we got to get some reviews back going, guys. Give us some 5.
I know we've been
stars.
consistent for you all lately, but
yeah, consistent. Like, if you gave us 5 stars, we're like a dog. We're going to come back and go to that same porch, and we're looking for treats. Give us this 5-star review.
The most
Ring
accurate thing ever
bell.
said on this show, actually,
Yeah.
if we want to be super honest.
5-star reviews. Go over to the podcast. Go listen on Spotify. Go over to our YouTube channel, Only RE, at Only RE on YouTube. Go to the Facebook with the only real estate group worth being a part of. And look, again, that drives us to want to be consistent, because that's how we reward ourselves, because we ain't getting rich on this.
We need pats on the back, words of affirmation, and data-driven results.
Yeah. You know what else went on a data-driven result is the Keller Williams profit share.
They sure did.
Right? Keller Williams profit share. That was one of our top listened and watched shows. And if you recall back in
Actually probably the most discussed show also.
most discussed show back in October.
October.
I can't remember when it was.
It was around
Whenever they did
it was
this.
around Mega Camp time. So it was
August, right? And so back in August of 2023, it was announced that Keller Williams was going to no longer really pay out up to 95. They were taking 95% of veteran vested Keller Williams agents who are no longer with that company. They were going to take away their profit share, but only give them about 5%. That was kind of the knife in their back type deal. And if
It's like when you go to a restaurant, you're supposed to tip like some amount, and you leave like $5. It's like, you knew you were supposed to tip, and you tipped like shit. I would rather have you leave me nothing, so you can at least claim ignorance.
Like you forgot.
Yeah.
Here's a line that I just picked out, though, that I didn't realize before. Voted to rescind changes to a profit sharing program previously set to go into effect July 1st, 2024. It's just kind of funny how much stuff was supposed
never
to
even
go
got
into
there.
effect in July that maybe isn't happening now.
Do you think, as we unbreak this Keller Williams thing, like, do you think that ultimately that there was in the background people who had legitimate lawsuits against this and had legitimate claims, and as they got closer to this, it was just a matter of, you know what, dude, we just paid out NAR all this money because so many brokerages did. We also, I do not want to get eaten alive in a profit share situation.
Of the people who probably stood to really make a lot of money, it wasn't like a number you could count on just both hands. It was more than that.
Yeah.
So I mean, dude, if I just had that taken away from me,
the uncertainty on the real estate landscape, the uncertainty in the business model itself, because this has been one of the things that I have just been straight rogue about, is I think that like brokerages business models are going to have to adjust over time to this as well. And like, dude, it just seems like with all the ass whippings that real estate agents have taken, this one didn't seem necessary.
I have no idea what the fine print said. But it does seem like in the original kind of agreements, you know, when you talk about potential lawsuits and things like that, this maybe does seem like one of those times where it's like the international ALC voted and then like a bunch of people were like, hey, I'm going to sue you. And then maybe they looked at the agreements and were like, oh yeah, maybe we can't just change this.
I'm not going to, I have no idea what the international ALC looks like.
Maybe KW was like, hey, stop.
Well, it's very international.
Well, and I get it. And I know it's selected from agents who hopefully have some business acumen and stuff. But also, if you're Gary Keller, and for years you have been priding yourself on running this thing yourself and keeping it from selling stocks and all this other stuff, and then you let a bunch of real estate agents who don't really have a vested interest in your business model succeeding at the end of the day make a decision that, like, A, looks publicly like dog shit, and B, like, might actually affect your retention rate long term and your ability to bring on new people, that's like letting the kids decide what you're having for dinner.
You're not wrong. I love this company and have been here for a very long time. I will say my one honest feedback. I know several international ALC members, and I think they're lovely people.
Sounds like a bragging comment.
No, you just have to apply. You don't.
I drank with Leo DiCaprio.
You don't have to like change citizenship or anything. It's not like a big deal. This seems like one of those decisions that, like, in hindsight, you're like, maybe we shouldn't have left it.
It's one of
such an enormous amount of money to this group of people.
Look, you get in those conversations. I get it. They have left the company, and they're probably there's hurt feelings when you go into making this. Was an emotional
why it
decision.
Shouldn't be their decision.
I understand that, and it was based on
You ever been to a local ALC meeting when they talk about people that left the office?
Dude, I'm a former. I still love Keller Williams. You've heard me defend when Gary Keller took the stand. I thought that was great. I think that, you know, in the lawsuit, that I think that all the CEOs and founders should have done that. But when you really look at if we ask, all right, AI. If we look at ChatGPT, it says, why, give me the breakdown and why did they retreat on this? First, the number one response is agent backlash, right? The initial decision to cut profit shares from 100% to 5% for vested agents who joined before April 2020 and subsequently moved on to competitors faced significant backlash from agents. The negative reaction was evident in industry discussions and comments.
Well, and it's also, I mean, it doesn't elaborate, but we know, and I know through our own conversations, it wasn't just agent backlash from agents that left the company. It was from KW agents as well.
Sure.
Because and if they were to leave, it's the same type of thing.
And look, here's the deal is I also agree that, like, some kids are getting to eat candy while other kids have to eat broccoli right now, because here's what I will say. No other company would do this business model now with saying you can leave and still get it. Like, all the other business models that they're compared to get shit on, but this is the way everybody would actually do it. We talked about this
when
the problem is
in the episode we talked about
you set a precedent. You built a company off a promise. You don't get to change it because that company isn't doing what it did or is doing more.
I think it was even more of a promise. If you actually look up and ask what vested means, it stays. Like, it doesn't go away. If you are with a company and you get shares that need to vest and then they're vested and you leave, they still are with you.
If you can prove real estate agents steered people like they did, you can definitely prove Keller Williams said that money was going to be yours forever.
Sure, absolutely.
Because every agent heard that shit multiple times.
Now, the question is, I believe that it still has the language in there that if you join today, I don't think that you get to keep it today.
I think
cool. Change it going forward. That's smart.
And that's probably, by the way, what they should have done.
They should. No, agreed. But they didn't have. Again, this is
nobody thought.
Yeah. Just get a couple people at international ALC meeting at mega camp, so they're probably drunk.
When Gary's doing his thing, calling from Austin, talking about Keller Williams International, he wasn't worrying about the problems of 170,000 agents.
Right. Well,
you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I know profit share came after that, but, like, I get why you would never have thought real estate would have taken off this way when you introduced that model.
I very much agree with the decision that, hey, from this day forward, it's probably an untenable model.
By the way, I saw some comments in some of the Facebook when this was announced last week or 2 weeks ago, and they're like, of course they needed to, the lawsuits, and they're now backpedaling because they have to. It's like, look, who cares? But that's the whole reason for lawsuit, right?
Yeah.
Like, okay, why does it matter? Like, let's just, I go back and forth on this. Like, they're only doing this because of the lawsuit. Well, I mean,
I would like to think justice is the desired outcome for lawsuits.
I do too. I think that, look, it says
on the
I think
we're
long
talking
term,
about,
this
but-
freaking smokes real estate brokerages, guys. I think we're overlooking the fact that like compressions on commissions. No, compressions on commissions. Like, when you talk about the lawsuit, right? We're talking about the lawsuit.
No. We're talking about the lawsuit that
we're
was
talking about the KW.
Oh,
we're talking
against the
about,
KW
like,
lawsuit.
the idea of lawsuits because of the KW thing.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. So
No, that lawsuit's just a money grab.
It is, but I think if real estate agents' commissions go down and things start changing in brokerages models, or have
it's
to,
not. I'm telling you, it's not.
buyers agents' commissions are going down. They're going down.
It's not.
Well, because they have to negotiate for it up front.
Organically, though, anyway.
It will happen organically because they have to negotiate for it up front.
Sure.
I'll tell you, this is one of the very few ones I do on Audible, but I just listened to it on the treadmill. The Devil's Chessboard.
Okay.
This is all about Alan Dulles, the former CIA director, and like all the underhanded stuff that the CIA has done. It's very crazy. But they're talking about, there's a whole chapter on it just on the profitability of World War II between the Americans and Germans. Anyway, I only mentioned that to say, like, major events in U.S. history were so profitable for so many people, almost to the point where you might think they didn't even happen the way you think that they thought they happened.
Maybe.
And so I say that only in regards to, like, maybe when a massive class action lawsuit happens where lots of money changes hands, maybe it didn't just sprout out because a bunch of sellers woke up one day and were like, you know what? If we band together, maybe it's like a whole bunch of people were like, you know what? If we poke the right buttons here.
I think if you had the right access, the money would lead to somebody who benefits from the fact that it works this way now.
Potentially.
So it says,
Blackstone.
Again, you asked ChatGPT. It says legal challenges. 3 former KW agents filed class action lawsuits against the company, alleging that the changes amounted to a breach of contract and unjust enrichment. These legal actions put additional pressure on KW to reconsider their decision. And then number 3, and let's see, there's 3, 4, and 5 here. So number 3 is retention and recruitment concerns.
Yes.
Right. So
That's a
you
great
want to
point,
retain,
too.
like, you know, it was, I know that letters were sent out like, hey, you want to keep your profit share, you need to come back. Like, that's not going to work.
That's almost will get you a middle finger faster than it'll get you compliance.
I don't know why, but I have this vision in my head of the International ALC sitting there writing letters
Individually. Jeff, if you want your motherfucking
since the last time we spoke.
Yeah.
Some changes have been made.
I don't know why I think about it that way.
Right. And then number 4 is internal recommendations. KW CEO Mark Willis and the International ALC recommended reversing the changes. This internal push likely reflected a recognition of the negative impact.
The International ALC recommended that, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. They're like, talk to Mark.
Yeah.
He knows what's up.
The negative impact the initial decision had on agent morale and loyalty.
Yeah.
Right. And then look, at the same time, market conditions, broader economic market conditions, including revenue dips and challenging market conditions, necessitated a reconsideration of strategies to ensure the company remained competitive and to stay attractive to its agents.
And you know why that last part's relevant? Because of the human condition. We all love it when our team kicks the hell out of somebody. When we're new to a team and we become the person who's like, man, I'm not really new here. I don't really I don't really know what's going on.
Yeah.
You guys are pretty pissed off about this. Like, if I ever leave, are you going to treat me like this? Like, it's really great when the person's been with KW for 17 years. It's like, yeah, screw those people who left for X brokerage.
It's like when you're the last person that didn't have to get jumped into the gang.
Yeah.
And then you see the first jumping and
Right,
you're
I'm
like,
not.
whoa,
And they're just like,
we're doing what?
if you're already indoctrinated into the system and you're just one of those diehards, okay, cool. You're always going to do, but like when it comes to new people coming in, they're going to be like, dude, there's a lot of smoke here. I don't really know if I'm going to hang out. If I leave, these people are going to all hate me. And I think that was the part that, and this is where I will say, I think Gary's freaking cowboy attitude gets him in trouble every once in a while because he will go running in the room, guns blazing. Like, I think Gary grew EXP for 3 years just by not shutting up about it. Right. But he all he would do was say, EXP sucks. Oh, also here's command. And it was like, dude, when you trip and fall on your face 3 years in a row with like what you're talking about, you're just going to chase people off. And the people who felt like you would, like, ultimately at the end of the day, you didn't have their back, they left. And then the people who were there were like, dude, if I ever leave and I lose my profit share, it doesn't feel good to be handcuffed to somebody. It feels better for it to be a choice. It feels like an actual relationship. But if I'm only at Keller Williams because I make $10,000 a month off profit share, am I really at Keller Williams?
I think it was a fantastic lesson in asking for forgiveness rather than permission.
Yeah.
Which it seems like, look,
I've made $0 on profit share. I want to be super clear about that.
I think it's a great pivot on Keller Williams' part. I think it shows a lot of humility, and I think it was long.
Only humility when lawsuits in your face.
No, that's
what they all say.
That's what they all say.
This is what I will also say. Gary also, like, I'll shit on him. I'll say the same thing in the same breath. Like, walking back stuff like this, like, he does seem like he's trying to do the right thing by agents all the time.
Yeah.
Whether you're on his agent's team, that's fine. Sure. Like, you don't have to like the guy, but he does seem like he's trying to help the industry at all times. And right now, that's needed more than ever.
That is 100%.
That's a fact.
100% true.
Whew. What else are we talking about?
We've got
dude? Nick's over here. Chat GPT away.
Jesse, pull up this arms race.
This is inevitable.
Yes, I have been curious about this exact topic for some time now, and I haven't read this article. But did you Chat GPT the gist of it? Because we're talking now about the portals.
Zillow, Redfin, Realtor, and Homes.com.
Mm-hmm.
And here's what and you guys dissect this for me, but here was what my initial thought process was. These companies have made their money off real estate agents purchasing leads forever. The promise that these leads will convert is what they are selling. We just added a massive hurdle in conversion of these leads by saying that early on in the process, this person who only found you through the internet is now has signed a buyer rep with you and agree a certain amount to pay you. Their business model is automatically in jeopardy just from that one specific line in this judgment. Yeah. How do they continue to freaking tell agents that they should pay this exorbitant amount for these leads of people who, candidly, Brian can get in his database for $6 probably, right?
And there's a whole different aspect to this of probably the ease of using AI and things like that to run competitive marketing strategies to just buying stuff from portals. Like the margin, or like I said, that the difference in the ability of a company like one of these portals to generate quality leads for a certain price, when you introduce like really good, intelligent data and AI into the equation, like that margin compresses a lot.
Big
It's
time.
not going to be that much. It's like with any other industry. Look at like the stock industry, right? You used to have to call a stockbroker to trade stocks. Now I literally could do it while I'm dead staring Jesse in the eye and not even think about it, right? Let's just like technology does that, right? There's another part to this as well, and maybe I don't know. This is the part about Googling stuff. You don't always get the right answer. There's another part to this as well that we don't have enough time to focus on today, but I am very curious about it. So I was also under the impression that with the changes to, is it TCPA? Is that the texting one?
Yes.
Okay. I was also under the impression that there was new guidance coming down the pipeline that
There is.
Yeah, there is, right? Have we talked about this?
What's that in calling?
So the compliance guidance, the changes in the guidelines that I understood were that you now need to opt in directly with your counterparty, right? For them to text you and it not be a violation. Meaning if I bought a lead from a portal, they may have opted in with that party, but not with me.
Nope.
And so they're going to have to work
That's
around
devastating.
that. Boom, one-to-one consent 7 hours ago. TCP update. FCC implements new one-to-one consent. So there's a whole nother aspect to this.
It's on Zillow's radar. That's not on ours.
That I'm wondering how they're going to. So that's like when we talk about it being an arms race, it's like, how do you figure out that aspect?
Wow, I didn't know anything about this.
That one-to-one consent thing has been on my radar for a few months, and I have no idea how they're going to. Sellers must obtain direct consent from the consumers before using automatic telephone dialing system or sending artificial voice messages. This consent must be running. Okay,
isn't this just a matter of
them
changing their opt-in information already to include one more thing that you just check the box
and
for?
Potentially, but that's got to be like an all-encompassing.
Because there's a terms of service thing that Zillow grabs you with at the beginning, so you don't have to worry about any of this.
There's a couple of workarounds that have been on my mind. The easiest one would be, let's just say I want to buy Zillow leads. Okay, so when I pay to buy Zillow leads in my zip code, what Zillow has actually done is set up a separate entity that covers that and other zip codes. And I actually get a small equity stake in that entity for my monthly fee. And then you're actually opting in to receive, text messages from Zillow 75092 LLC.
Yeah.
Right. And so now I get to do that stuff like that, is where my head goes. But it's a very interesting component to this on top of the commission.
So part of this is like, and when you ask ChatGPT, it doesn't get all of it, right? So as you read and understand it, the biggest thing that some of these changes to the portals are happening and the way that it looks from like Zillow, right? Impact on major portals. The settlement forces real estate portals like Zillow, Redfin, Realtor.com, and Homes.com to innovate and adapt their business models, which could lead to new tools and services that could benefit consumers and agents alike. Now, what we're hearing on this is that, number one, Zillow's offering this dynamic showing, and it's going to have to, and right now it's going to account for about 20 to 25% of its traffic and reach outs, which you're going to have to get a buyer's rep signed. So Zillow's going ahead and getting, I think it's 7-day buyer rep contracts. Yeah. I think Open Doors following suit. But as you read this, where the trouble part's going to happen is that just exactly what you said is that the Federal Communications, the FCC, is pushing to close the lead generator robocalls and robotext loopholes, which could make it more difficult for Zillow to leverage that power that they have. So think of it this way. When you get a lead right now, and let's say that person is looking to get a mortgage, insurance, or real estate agent, that lead can no longer get that lead and sell it multiple times the highest bidder.
Exactly.
And he said what you're going to start having now is consumer consent to have their information sent to multiple providers. So consumer consent. I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to be buried in such fine print that these guys are masters at this. So just like, Kelderman stepped out for a moment and Kelderman would be like, oh, this would devastate it. It won't. It just gets buried.
No. I don't think it's going to be devastating. It's another interesting thing to have to work through. And so it just throws this whole landscape of these portals into flux momentarily and gives somebody the opportunity to provide the best solution. Yes. Right. And so it unevens the playing field momentarily.
Sure.
And if you uneven the playing field long enough and you have a great solution, that's where you can compete again. Because really, Zillow is probably the largest name. But if you look at a lot of these portals, they're relatively neck and neck in a lot of areas. And so this throws that into flux for a bit and gives an opportunity to take market share.
Well, it may allow Homes.com, which was acquired by, I think, CoStar, to really ramp up. And they're spending that money. And some of the positive impacts, look, this has increased transparency. So agents will benefit from clear, more upfront communication with clients about fees and services, right? This transparency can actually build better trust in client relationships. It should enhance tools, competitive advantages. So it talks about, as an agent, who adapt quickly to the new rules and leverage the enhanced tools and services, they may gain an actual competitive advantage that they can differentiate themselves through better services and more effective use of technology. Here's AI, better potential for actually better compensation models. Right? Shift from cooperative conversation could lead to more tailored and potentially lucrative compensation models as agents negotiate their fees directly with their clients. Mm-hmm. That's the big one that I see is like, all right, when I'm working with a buyer, it's always been like, it's been a crapshoot, because how often did you sign a buyer's rep? More often than you didn't, because I actually signed a lot of them. And it would be like, oh, here's my commission. And we still went with whatever was being offered on the MLS.
You rarely hit up your buyer for the difference.
By the way, when I explained everything to my buyer today that I signed, and I said, look, this is how we're going to navigate through this process. First time home buyer had no concerns over paying me that, plus whatever else that I charge in there without going into full details.
What people need to relax about too is this is, like Matt said this 6 months ago, this is only a one cycle problem. Everyone will get used to the new normal. And you will get used to negotiating buyer reps up front. Now, if you can't do that for one cycle, you will get washed out of the industry.
It's just the truth. It's the belief where I'm telling you that I'm going to look, I'll eat my own words here if I'm 100% wrong, but I don't believe I will be. It's not going to impact commissions.
Yeah.
it's changing the term. So we're going to say, oh, concessions. You're right, Matt. It's no longer, it did impact commission. It's a concession. You're actually probably going to make more money because you're adapting and get better service.
Yeah. No, I agree.
So,
My variable is not commissions. My variable is agent count.
Sure. Which honestly, if we actually
none of
look
us should
at,
be opposed to that.
here's what I'm going to tell you.
There's a few.
Here's what I'm going to tell you right now. What is not being disclosed is how many agents actually rebated their commissions. So they actually weren't earning that full fee anyway. They were making that. They weren't. They were giving that back to the buyer.
Yeah.
And in all reality, I know more often than not, I've seen a lot of that where it was like, hey, I'll do this, but I'm going to give 2% back. Or I'm going to give 1% back. I'm going to give.
I think we would find if we could see the numbers, it would fall in line with those listing numbers I talked about earlier. I think it would be 15 to 20%, 1 out of every 5.
Yeah. But I don't think that's the
6.
demographic that we lose, though.
Yeah.
Because they're already used to working in that business model. The
I do
demographic
think-
we lose is the ones that are barely, they're doing 4 or 5 deals a year and they're not strong.
Possibly.
negotiators.
I don't know if we actually may lose those because they're used to giving something back versus saying this is what my fee and not giving anything.
Yeah.
And when you're giving something back, you actually can provide crappy service,
Yeah.
which is what they're doing in the first place, right?
Yeah.
They're saying,
No,
hey,
you're not
go do
wrong.
this, go do that.
That's a good point.
So I think we lose that. I think we lose the what Realtor or what NAR released within that commission report they had. What do they call the 5 agents that did 5 deals or less?
Oh
my
my
they didn't
gosh.
call it subpar.
It was kind of
it
a,
was like fear of getting out of the industry.
no, it was a certain oh my gosh. We did a whole episode about it and it was in the title. Are
the
you
marginal agent?
The marginal agent.
Marginal
It gets rid of the marginal agent
Man, that hurts.
because they're not going to go pay for their renewals. They're not going to be part of this.
Yep.
So I think that part-time marginal agents and those notorious discounters, they don't have anything to offer. That was their call to action. Use me and I will rebate this.
You get rid of marginal agents and discounters, so that's like 40% of the industry.
51, it was in a 51% of all agents did
51% of
zero
all
or one deal.
So,
So
yeah, it's
49%.
probably like 55% if you get rid of discounters and marginal agents.
Great.
Which, hey, we could use a few less lawyers too, in my opinion.
I've been saying for years, I don't have any sympathy for the agents who take this industry and go into people's living rooms and don't do what they say they're going to do. I am a bartender who moved into this, and this is something that I take super seriously. If you have to get in this industry because you don't understand how to do it and you're not making an effort, I don't care.
It is funny you say that, and this is not to be braggadocious, but you just hit the nail on the head. I ran an appointment on Saturday in Uptown and hadn't been on an appointment for a very specific 3-story townhome in that area for a while, like right at Lemon and Douglas, and there's a lot of different types of product around there, and spent like 90 minutes with them. It went really well. And in my the person I was with, one of our newer agents, afterwards, we were in the car and she was just like, how do you just keep all this stuff in your head? And it's thinking, again, not to be braggadocious, but anytime I get asked that question, it's always funny because there is no answer. It's just
I'm a student of this shit.
I've just done this shit for so long.
Yes.
I just picked up the phone so many times. I've just run so many appointments because this is my job.
Yeah.
Like, I've been doing it for a long time as well, so that helps. But like, even in the beginning, like if I wasn't running on appointments, I just felt like I wasn't doing my job.
You only got to longevity through skill and learning, though,
And
right?
you don't have to do it for 15 years either. You can do it for 2 years and just do enough repetitions.
Absolutely.
That you get more experience than most people in a decade.
Yep.
And so I just like, that's always a funny question.
Absolutely. You know what else is not a funny question?
It's not funny at all.
is working with Mortgage Mike. He's fun, but not funny. Right? He uses a lot of bad dad jokes. But if you want to hear them, you just go to mmgloans.com and tell him you want the bad dad joke and the Mortgage Mike stamp of approval. He's getting all the best deals, the best terms. So let him earn your business. Just give him a call, shoot him a text, reach out to him, mmgloans.com. And then get over to Armadillo, best home warranty company out there. That one-page contract, armadillo.1/Tor, TORE. Connect with Theron Smith. And then investments. That's the way to go. I'm buying a rental property in the Colony. I'm selling some stock for cash and buying that one. And Dana Wynn at Homeward DFW is going to be managing that one. So go to homewarddfw.com. She manages all my stuff. She should manage all your stuff. Let her earn your business because she gives subpar, exceptional, something, whatever her service is. Exceptional service, exceptional customer service, and service.
Yeah, it's something like that.
She'll service you.
Whoa.
TorStudios.com.
Goodbye. Eventually.
5 stars?
Faster.
5 stars.
Get me the fuck.
Hey, thank you for watching. We truly appreciate it, checking out another episode of the only real estate podcast worth listening to. If you're watching this on YouTube, please go ahead, hit that share button, hit that like button, and hit the subscribe button. Right? We're dropping more stuff on YouTube constantly. If you're on iTunes, leave us a review, please. We're really, really focused on building up those reviews so we can get more searchable content on there. And if you're on Facebook, like everyone else is, go over and search the only real estate group worth being a part of. You're going to want to go join that group. I'm telling you right now, there's so much gold in there. So go join, share us on YouTube, and leave us that iTunes review, please. Go do it right now. We'll see you on the next show.